dare to do on my own. It's David Toulis, and we are here at 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4 high definition TV4, and well, that's Radio 4, and want to thank you for tuning into the program. Near is better than far, and small is better than big, simple than complex. And down in the footnotes, where a lot happens, a lot can happen at 5-point type in the Helvetica font, neutral Swiss font, right? It's non-compulsory, no blades or sharp edges on any letter in that text. We have the following: personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. We had a chat last week with a man named Malik Sanford, who was a very hard-working telephone company worker, and he has 12-hour shifts. And on the Saturday and Sunday shift, he doesn't have a lot of time between them, but a very recent Sunday morning, he was in his car right near the line between Chattanooga and East Ridge. And guess what? He'd been on a 12-hour shift, and he was about to go on another one, and he fell asleep in the intersection. Not a good thing to happen, not perhaps very safe. But we heard about his encounter with the police, and I have Malik Sanford on the phone. And the question I want to ask you, Malik, is about the bond. Now, it seems like you had an encounter with the magistrate, which is good. Why? Let me ask you this: why do you suppose that it's good for you as an accused person to see a magistrate? What was who is that magistrate, and what kind of encounter did you have with him, Malik Sanford?
All right, thanks for having me on. I didn't get the magistrate name. He was pretty fair about my bond as far as asking me, where did I work and how long have I been living in Chattanooga. He did ask me about my character and things like that. So the magistrate, he did seem pretty fair when he set my bond.
Well, okay, so he asked about what kind of answers did you give, and what other character, length of time in city? Those are 2 points. What did you say, and what other questions did he ask you? Try to remember, please, Malik.
All right. Well, hey, he did ask me where I work, and I did respond. I work for a telephone company where I am an account expert, and I work 12-hour shifts. He asked me how long have I been there, and I let him know I've been there roughly a year. And he did ask me how long I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I told him all of my life. And, so he seemed pretty fair. I mean, he set my bond at $200. Well, it was actually $2,000, but I had to pay 10%, which was $200. And, I mean, that was pretty much it. We didn't talk for a long time.
You say you did talk for a long time with the magistrate?
No, we didn't. We didn't talk too long.
And what's the purpose of his ordering a bond? What's the reason for that?
Well, I'm guessing for the DUI, which, of course, I'm not found guilty of the DUI, but that's what I was brought down to the jail for. So I'm guessing for the DUI, even though I did explain the situation, he still set a bond, which I kind of thought he was going to give me an OR.
What does that mean?
Now, an OR is pretty much you don't have to pay anything to be released.
And why are people given OR bonds? Why are they given own recognizance, Malik Sanford?
Well, normally, just depending on how many times you've been in jail, like if it's like your first time, you normally get an OR depending on the reason behind you being incarcerated.
Okay, so if you had many cases before against you, then the judge will think that you're not a good character, you're not a good risk. Is that right?
Well, yeah, but I'm assuming in this case the reason why I didn't get an OR bond is because, coming to jail, being accused of a DUI, of course, that looks, I guess, kind of bad to the magistrate. So even though he heard my story, maybe he kind of had his mind made up that, he really didn't believe what I was saying. Of course, he's not going to go against the officer, whatever the officer wrote down. So he just pretty much set my bond for $200 instead of giving me like a OR, which is to me is like a getaway free pass because you don't have to pay anything
Right. Well,
to get out of jail.
I think you may be misunderstanding what his job is. His job is not to evaluate the charges against you, per se. He's not there to see whether the police were right or whether your defense is good. His only job is to determine whether there's a valid charge, A, and then B, in determining whether or not you're a good risk for showing up for court. Because that's the problem that he faces is Malik Sanford going to be a failure to appear on his court date? And so that's why these questions about your employment, family, length of time in the area are the questions he asks. He's not asking about the charges. He's asking about the likelihood that you'll be in the court. And he thought that you wouldn't be in the court. He thought that, well, to some degree, this man who's being charged by the cops, who did not give him a breathalyzer test, even though they accused him of DUI, he's not a good risk for showing up at the hearing. And that's why he charged you really a fortune that you had to pay the bondsman for. Now, let me ask you this. You didn't have the money to write a check for $2,000 to cover your own bond. Is that right? You could not cover it yourself? Okay. You couldn't have given over a pistol or claim of property or cash, something like that?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
No.
So you had to, you went to the man in the middleman, the bondsman who makes his living on the fee, which is 10%.
Absolutely, I did.
Will you get that money back from the bondsman?
Oh no, I won't get that money back. It's a loss.
Okay, so that's just your expense. So already you're a working man being hit with a $200 bondsman's fee, and you didn't have the money to write a check for $2,000, because if you had written a check for $2,000, of course, and you'd showed up for the proceedings in court, you would have gotten every penny of that back. Right? You know that you would have gotten everything back, but you didn't have it up front to pay initially. Right?
That's something new that I learned today.
Well, you don't have to use a bondsman if you have someone who can put the money up. Of course, let's say you have an uncle Sanford, who can write a check for $1,000, and you have a balance past $1,000, you can write a check for $1,000 too. Then that covers the bond, and then when everything is done, all that money comes back. There is no expense, except you don't have the use of that money in the time in which your case is in process.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, that was some great information to learn today.
Did not the magistrate say that to you? Did he not explain that to you?
No, he didn't explain that one.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm really glad to hear, Malik, that he did ask you these questions, because the law on recognizance really requires him to determine whether you're a good risk for showing up for court. And there have been studies lately showing that bonds really are a kind of a state harassment of the poor, and most people I'm sorry.
I agree.
Yes, and poor people can't write checks for $2,000, and so they have to pay the bondsman's fee, which then makes the whole thing a loss. And that bondsman, that's just free money for him. He just keeps an office and shows up at police stations and jail doors and tries to help people, right, by bailing them out. But that's free money for that whole industry. And here you're paying it, you're not going to get it back. And but I'm glad to hear from you, Malik, that the magistrate did ask these questions, because they're really very important.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what you're saying, and this is from the kind of person you seem to be here in our conversation, the kind of man who would show up so that you could clear your name, because that's what you want to do when you go to court. Is you've been accused, and here you are. You want to clear your name and get this behind you without making any important compromises, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
I will be showing up on August the 14th.
Yes, sir. August the 14th.
For my hearing. Yes, August the 14th. That will be next Tuesday.
Let me ask you a question. A lot of people just figure they can't deal with the idea of being indicted. But do you not realize that when you say, I'm going to waive this court, the sessions court or the city court, and I want my case to be heard by the grand jury, there you have a chance of the whole thing just going away, because the grand jury can issue a no true bill, which says that we dismiss this case entirely, and there's never anything on your record. Or if they indict you, they're simply saying, well, we think that there should be a trial in this matter, and since this man is already under a bond, your bondsman, of course, will know about that, and he'll simply tell you, well, hey, you got indicted. The trial date is XYZ. Get ready. And that's all. You're not going to be rearrested or anything because you have a bond, and the bondsman just keeps you up to date on your court date. And then you go to trial. You go to trial and face the accusation. And people are just afraid of doing that. They dread the idea. And so most everybody, Malik Sanford, just plea bargains. Everybody plea bargains, and the police work is rarely examined. The nature of the accusations are rarely looked at. Many charges are simply bogus, throwaway charges that the cops put upon the poor victim. And so, let me ask you this. Do you plan to plead, or do you plan to assert your right to an indictment?
Well, I'm definitely not pleading guilty to something that I was falsely accused of, and I was refused my breathalyzer test. So if I have to, take it to trial, then hey, so be it. But I really feel like with the evidence that's going to come back from my blood test that I was given once I was incarcerated, for my alcohol level, it's going to come back in the clear. And I just feel like with that evidence alone, I mean, how can you still stick me with a DUI charge when the blood test is actually going to come back clean? Because I know it will, unless they do some kind of mix-up. Because I don't trust the police. I mean, who knows? But
well, I think it's possible the charges could be dismissed if there's a good result in the blood test. But you have a right to you have a right to discovery against the cops. You have a right to know all the police officers involved from East Ridge or Chattanooga, and you have a right to depose them. In other words, you can ask them for an interview about what happened. Those are all things that are, I believe, that are your rights. You have full discovery rights in this case. But the question is what you can do on your own and what you have to have help for. And if you have a public defender, the public defender is simply going to do the easy thing, which is to say, just plea bargain this and it'll go away, or we can make it so that we'll make it as least damaging to you as possible. And it's all almost everything is done by negotiation, and nothing goes to trial. No hard facts go before the people to look at, people who can look at the facts, and also the police work involved. That would be the jury trial, the trial jurors. They're not given a chance to look at this work and the accusations against you. So there's a lot of temptation just to kind of make it go away. And I encourage you to stand your ground, Malik.
I absolutely plan on it.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for the report about the magistrate's meeting. Appreciate that very much, Malik Sanford.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for calling me back. This is David Toulis, and we've been talking with Malik Sanford. And I wanted to mention about New Brunswick, New Jersey, before my time got away from me, and it gets away from me very quickly here. And we're mentioning this terrific website, strongtowns.org. And I do hope you go there. I've listened to quite a few podcasts from the writers there. And the reason we have stagnation in places such as East Ridge and Red Bank is very stagnant. And I'm not sure what the rules are there, but Nolan Gray. This is David Toulis. You're live on the air on my program. What's on your mind, caller?
Hey, I hope he's listening, David. Excuse my stuffy nose and cold here, but just please remember, this is not brain surgery. Lawyers make it sound like it's really difficult. It's not. If you are already a problem solver, and he is, really go to the courthouse, look at what they filed. You have a right to public records. Just look at criminal cases, look what they file, and copy it. It's as easy as really just using a template. That's what the lawyers do. And there's books there too, and you can go online to learn how to do this. And what you need to do now is ask for a chain of custody is very important, which means from the second they took your blood, who took your blood? How did they take it? What was the process for determining alcohol level? How was it returned? All those questions you have a right to ask. Who were all the police involved? What are their phone numbers to get in touch with them? And by the way, in all criminal cases where you can go to jail, you have a right to an attorney being appointed to you. It doesn't matter. If you can spend time in jail, you have a right to that, which I wouldn't recommend. So chain of evidence is really important, and you need to right now go through discovery, which means file some paperwork with the courthouse. It's not that difficult to do. Look, go down there and see how they do it, and just copy it and put your own words in there. You need the name, addresses, or not necessarily addresses, name and phone numbers of everyone involved. You need to know the chain of custody, and you need to know all evidence against you. This is not Perry Mason. Both sides have to have all of the information. I don't know if people realize that. That when it's civil or criminal proceedings, you have to share information with the other side. You can't go into court blind. So they have to give you every single piece of evidence that they have against you. And then you can impeach that evidence. You can, in other words, look at it and go, this isn't true. I'm going to cross-examine this guy on the witness stand and show everyone where he's a liar. The chances are it never gets that far.
Right. The state prosecutor will drop any potentially embarrassing case, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, especially if you argue the law. There's two points to every case, the law and the facts. And I always say if you argue the facts, you're going to lose because they manufacture evidence, and the police will almost always lie on the witness stand. I'm not saying that because I am an anti-cop. I'm saying that because I've seen it over and over again, and then the system covers up for them. But, not just the police, people in general lie on the witness stand. So you have to argue the law. And the law is what statute, rule, or regulation that I violated to the point where I need to be prosecuted. And that's what you want to argue. But to do that, you need to see the evidence that they have against you. And you have a right to do that, every single piece of evidence. And as I said before, David, last week, if everyone did that, the system would come to a crawl. They would no longer just be prosecuting Mickey Mouse cases to make money and get everyone in the system. Because it's about compliance. I wish the listener would understand what I'm about to say. This system is about modern-day America policing with politicians in control. It's about compliance. They want to get you to comply. That's why there's checkpoints. That's why there's licenses. That's why there's registration. And I don't want anyone to ever tell me that that's a good thing and we're free because of it, because that's an option.
Well, we're safe, Mike. We're safe. We may not be free, but we're safe, Mike, right?
Well, I don't think we're safe. I think we're in more danger. Look at Chicago. It's more dangerous to be in Chicago than it is in Afghanistan. How's those gun laws working out for you, Chicago? See, criminals don't obey laws. So, no. And as a matter of fact, I think it was Burke. It was either Burke or Franklin that said, those who are willing to sacrifice their liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security. So we can never forget that. Look what's happening. This is a different subject with Alex Jones, where their ban now for speech is about to go away. If we don't support a guy like Malik, they're coming after you next. If the system can willy-nilly just throw you in jail because of maybe you made a minor error. And once again, David, listen, I've been there. I've worked so many jobs, I've fallen asleep at the wheel. I almost demolished my car. I've fallen asleep at traffic lights. It's happened to me. I was so tired. 6 o'clock in the morning working jobs. It happens. But I guarantee you this, if I was somebody with a badge and another police officer pulled over and asked me what was going on, I just worked a double shift, they'd have let me go. But since they don't have a badge, they're going to arrest me? That's bullcrap. No. I hope you follow this case to the very end. Because if what he's saying is true, that all he did was fall asleep because he was tired, and there was nobody getting hurt, no one was injured, there was no problem, the police can use what's called discretion. There's so many laws in the book, you can be written a ticket for anything. But we need to use discretion for justice. And that's common sense. Right.
The officer should have acted more, Mike, as a firefighter would have, coming upon a man with his head tilted over against the door jamb. Evidently, he would say, "Sir, are you okay? Are you having a medical emergency? May I help you?" That's a helpful attitude. I think that would be much better serving the men and women in blue, Mike.
If it's a rapist, if it's a piece of trash you're arresting, you know it's a piece of trash. I can care less.
Okay, listen, Mike, thanks very much for calling. David Toulis, Nuka Radio, 92.7 FM. Guess who's next? Guess who's next? Sean Hannity, right here, 92.7.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A stolen tractor trailer rams a patrol car and officers open fire.